SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Well, hello there. Good morning on a Thursday. We're so close to the weekend. We'll get there. I have no doubt. Dave Hughes here, filling in the big chair on this Thursday. With us, of course, now, back from his sabbatical. He was out in Vegas doing mantras out in the desert. Our old buddy Rhino. How you doing, sir?
Oh, not too terribly bad. For somebody that's as well rested as I am, I shouldn't be as sluggish this morning, but I feel like I'm swimming through syrup. It's like, hang on. I know how all this stuff works. This isn't my first rodeo, but my brain just will not get into gear.
Well, that tells me that you did a good job with your time off, because we use the phrase all the time about I got to unplug. You need to unplug. When you unplug, it's like rebooting your computer, which is a good thing because, you know, if you go a long time with your computer on, it starts to bog down and go slowly and have errors and everything else. You reboot it, it's not immediately ready to go. It's got to go through all the reboot processes and the system updates and everything else before it's back to full usability. So currently we just, in the case of Rhino, should put a screen up for the booth that says update 1 of 3 installing. Wait time, 7 minutes. Or however long. It might be longer than 7 minutes. You get all the grace in the world. But that tells me you did the right thing with your time off. Good for you. Good job.
Yeah, I had about 85 words that were what I considered politically charged that I just muted across all social media. So whenever I felt the need, out of boredom, to pick up a phone and scroll through a social media platform, I was seeing soccer and Formula One and football and swimsuit models and anime, and it was just like, this is how the real world lives, where they're not constantly plugged into back and forth all the time.
That's the problem with this job. If there is a problem, it's a great job. I'm not knocking it at all. It's a fantastic. I haven't dug a ditch all year. It's a great job, but it gets a little much sometimes. Here's my blocking tip, by the way. If you want a blocking tip for X especially, block the phrases, "this is huge," and "this is big." If you block those two phrases, 90% of the nonsense goes away. You still get the breaking news, you just don't get the moronic takes on it. You know what I'm talking about. I see you smiling and nodding. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This is huge. It's kind of a corollary to the old rule that if a story's headline asks a question, the answer is always no. If it says this is huge, it ain't. Just about every single time. So you just kind of keep scrolling past to go about your business, or just mute it and you don't have to deal with it, and you have a great week like Rhino has. I'm very glad to hear that for you. I'm not the least bit jealous. He lied. But it's okay. Well, you missed so many. I almost out of habit said good things, but we'll just change it to things. You missed so many things this week that have been going on.
Did I miss them, or did they happen?
They happened. You just probably weren't aware of some of them. I can tell because you seem relaxed and in a good mood. We'll do our best to fix that before we're done here at 1 o'clock. But we'll start with one, and I love that they actually did a full story on this on ABC News. The new Presidential Hall of Fame at the White House got a portrait of all the presidents going all the way back. And you go down, and the last three, of course, are Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Donald Trump again. He followed through with what he said he was going to do. Biden's portrait is a picture of an auto pen signing his name, hanging on the wall in the White House between two Donald Trump portraits. That is exactly the level of petty I will endorse. I'm fine with that. What's he gonna do? Sick corn pop on him? No. So go ahead, go with it. Have your fun. I love that so much. A lot of stuff going on. Did you take any Tylenol while you were off?
I barely even saw that was a thing until last night.
Man, has that been a thing all week long. And then the tweet surfaced from 2017 where Tylenol said they didn't recommend pregnant people taking their products.
I think it goes back farther than that.
Yeah. I think I've seen it as far back as like 2008, I think it was the earliest thing that I've seen. Other countries, over in England, where it's not called Tylenol, it's not called acetaminophen, it's called
Paracetamol.
Yeah. Picky poo, whatever they call it. Turning into the president here. They have very clear warnings on the insert in the package, on the packaging and the labeling itself about that in other countries. Here, we're somehow having a debate about it. Here's my overarching question for you today, Rhino, and just work on it with me as we go through the day, because I'm curious to get your take on it. Is it possible for us to reach the maximum level of stupid in this country, or are we there already? Or is it just an unattainable goal? We're just going to keep getting dumber and dumber, and everything is going to get more and more ridiculous for the rest of all time.
I think it's the latter. It's the terrifying truth that just when you think it can't get any dumber, it goes and does something like this.
Yeah. Well, it's nonstop. The moronic takes have gotten very old. What I find interesting is I'm starting to know just a hint, just a gentle aroma of common sense wafting on the breeze from some folks, more folks than usual, going, "Oh, shut up. We're tired of that." I'm seeing just a little tiny bit more of that. We need a tidal wave of that, but we're not getting it. Maybe it can build, though. Maybe we can get there, because the stupid takes die down once people quit paying attention to them. But everybody is addicted. It's a twofold thing. Everybody is addicted to getting those likes and what you very accurately refer to as internet cool points. But there's an entire other group of people, now there is some overlap, who are addicted to consuming those takes because they like feeling in the know, and they like feeling like they're part of something and we're part of the fight, and they like being outraged, and they like being fearful, and they like, oh, shut up. Those people, well, they kind of feed the ones that put out the stupid takes, and then we have to deal with it, and then we have to deal with the fallout from those stupid takes, like what happened in Dallas yesterday morning. What has happened I got a whole thing. I know you're going to be with me on this one. We're going to get into it later in the show. About the latest narrative that's being put out that's really got me flashing back to the 80s. It's a connection. I'll draw it for you. It'll be later on in the show. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't have the time. Because
first thing went to my mind is D&D, Satanic Panic.
Kinda, yeah. we're starting to see the beginnings of the same type of nonsense narrative being put out about those evil video games. It's all gamers. Everybody is a gamer. The games are dragging you down. They're making people crazy. Yes, and guns kill people, not people. It's the same argument with different words. And if you don't buy into one, you can't buy into any of them. But we've been here before, and what so many people forget is how often things change politically, because satanic panic and all of the coming down on heavy metal music, that evil satanic heavy metal music, Dee Snider's going to eat your children, which, to be fair, he looked like it. Who was the leader that pushed that movement? Tipper Gore, Al's wife. You know, extremely liberal Democrats. Oh, I got a whole thing on that, but that's later on. We've got Dr. Ryan McGaughey coming on with us at the bottom of the hour. Interesting subject to talk about with him. We're going to be talking tourism, start of next hour, and then I'll go completely off the rails because it's Thursday and I'm here on Middays here on SuperTalk Mississippi in the Element Wealth Studios. Keep it here.
From thesebrook.com.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi, Middays in the Element Wealth Studios on this Thursday morning, a beautiful day. We've had a little rain. Oh, we desperately needed that little bit of rain, so very, very happy that we got that. Just saw an interesting report, and it did not amaze me one bit. I was a little surprised that they didn't at least put forth the effort to some extent when the House Judiciary Committee and Jim Comer released something on their website this week, I believe it was Tuesday, that Google had sent a letter admitting that they had censored YouTube and taken down a bunch of accounts at the request of the Biden administration without even pushing back. Just said, okay, yes, sir, and just took away a whole bunch of people's accounts, apologizing, saying those people could have their accounts back. They were going to redo everything. Didn't really see a ton of coverage of that story in the mainstream news. I've talked myself to several people that weren't even aware that happened. They came right out and admitted that the Biden administration was censoring people that were saying things they didn't like on YouTube, which I thought was the whole conversation that's going on about how bad censorship is. So you would think that there would be an outcry about that, except that we all know it's one giant bed that the mainstream media and the liberal left are lying in together. So, of course, they're not going to overly amplify that. Well, now, I just saw a report just a minute ago. Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones, after that announcement on Tuesday, ran over there and created themselves new accounts on YouTube. Hey, brand new day, the censorship's over. Yeah, they shut them down this morning. Second verse, same as the first. In other words, it was all lip service as usual. Last Friday, I got a little fired up over the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing. And accusing the FCC of censoring But that's kind of what the FCC does. It's not censorship. It's them doing their job with people that have a broadcast license. That's all it is. And while YouTube definitely does have the right to shut down an account if they want, again, private business, don't want you here, we're not going to let you be here. I get that. Makes perfect sense. You don't get to do that at the behest of a president and then cry that the next president is doing the same thing to the people that don't agree with them and their administration. It's this one-way traffic on the road of respectability that I think bothers us all the most. If it's an even playing field, if whoever's in power gets to do it and there's no complaint, well, that's just kind of the way it is, for better or worse. That's not the case, though. One side is always virtuous in every single way that they violate their own principles that they claim are the most important thing in the history of the universe. We stand for this. This is only right. This is only fair. This is only just. Wait, you're doing it too? No, you can't do that. That's horrible. What's wrong with you? You're an awful person. It's the hypocrisy coming from the left that's the biggest problem. They'll never understand that. They'll never get that because, again, they live in a place where they are right. They are always right. They always will be right, no matter what they say, even if it disagrees with what they just said 30 seconds ago. Still right. I'm just right again in a different way. So it's a combination of hypocrisy and stupidity. There's a really thin, blurry line between those two in this particular instance. Either you're going to stand for free speech to a ridiculous extent, or you're not. If you want to apply the standard liberal take of rules for thee, not for me, to free speech, we have a problem. And apparently we still have that problem. That's the least surprising part of this entire story, this entire thing. Is that they just put that letter out. The House Judiciary Committee just issued a story in their press room on their official website, judiciary.house.gov. I mean, it's the official federal government website, with a link to Google's letter that they sent out. 2 days ago they did that. And already YouTube's like, yes, we're going to welcome people back that way. No, not you. You go away, not you, but everybody else. We're going to welcome back. Pat me on the back. Somebody, please buy me a cigar. I'm being a very good boy this week. No. That's one of the major things that has changed in America, in my opinion, right now, is a year ago, 6 months ago, 1 month ago. Everybody would have said, yeah, that's the way it is. It's the way it's always been. It's just stupid. Just ignore it. And just let them get away with it. And now everyone is howling over everything, which I'm not going to say is a step in the wrong direction, because until you call them on it and hold them accountable, the behavior never changes. But they have to have consequences. They have to have something tangible that they look at and go, oh, wow, ouch, shouldn't have done that. And before you say, well, that's what the ballot box is for, what happened last November? How'd it go for the Democrats? How are the Democrats doing in polling right now amongst the voters in just about every category? That Ipsos poll that came out, I think there were 3 categories where the Democrats had a slight advantage over Republicans on issues. Women's rights, the typical liberal stalking points, as I call them. Everything else, the Republicans had a clear lead ranging from like 10 to 20 points ahead. They're not scared of the ballot box and don't care what the voters think. That's not the way to get to them. In the case of free speech, Sinclair and Nextstar, doing what they've done, if they just hold, tight to what they're doing, that might can have some effect. There have to be consequences. And the Democrats don't, they use it as a talking point. They use it as a screaming point. They don't seem to care. It certainly doesn't change their behavior when they get smoked at the ballot box, when they get just stomped in the polls. See no change in behavior. So it takes something different. It takes accountability. It takes consequences. It takes everyone no longer just letting it go by and saying, well, I'm just going to, turn the other cheek. As I was talking about Friday morning, there are two Jesuses in the Bible. One said, turn the other cheek. The other one started flipping tables in the temple when he didn't like what we saw. It's table flipping time, if you want to see any change, in my opinion. Rhino, if you will have all of the pastors that show up to complain about what I just said, form an orderly line over to, they'll all be orderly, but form a line over to the left. We'll get to them as we can. You know what I find interesting, though? I've been saying that for a couple of weeks now, both on my local show, on the network. I haven't received one single blowback on it yet. That kind of says something. To me, anyway. So, when you see problems, call it out and don't back down. It's that simple. If you're going to stand for what's right, well, we have to start standing for what's right. What's the expression now? 10 toes down? Yeah, I'm old. What about it? Like the kids are saying now? Yeah, I know. When we come back, we're going to change the subject to something more cheerful. Spinal cord injuries and pain management. It's a fascinating topic. And we're going to talk to Dr. Ryan McGaughey, pain management specialist with Methodist Rehab. We've got him up next in the Element Wealth Studios on Middays on a Thursday morning. Keep it here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here on Middays, and joining me now, and I'm going to ask you right up front, because I know there are about 3 or 4 different ways to pronounce it. How do you pronounce your last name? You've never been asked that, I'm sure.
Never in my life, Dave. Thank you. I've really enjoyed the show. It's McGaughey, so I'm Dr. Ryan McGaughey.
Very good. I've seen and heard different pronunciations from other people that have that name, so I just wanted to make sure we got it right for you, Dr. McGaughey. We're here to talk about, if you said it in really simple terms, your back really hurting, but it's a lot more serious than that. This is Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, right? Tell us a little bit about that and about spinal cord injuries. That's what you deal with, right?
It is. I deal with a portion or subsegment of spinal cord injuries. So September, Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, is primarily to enhance awareness for the general population about what that means and what the long-term effects of a spinal cord injury are, and then to advocate for people who may have experienced an injury so that we can work towards better technology, better access and understanding for these patients. And, in the United States, we have about 18,000 new spinal cord injuries a year. And have about 300,000 people or so that live with spinal cord injuries in the United States as we speak. And, they're an injury to the spinal cord, and I'll go through just briefly here in a little bit the high level of what the anatomy of that is. But that is an injury that is complex and can often be pretty devastating. And it does require a team ultimately to care for people. And if you break that team down, myself and the team that I work with, we are just a portion of the care that these patients are going to need over the short term and the long term.
Now, let me ask you, because you hear a term like, spinal cord injury, you think of a severely traumatic event causing that. A really bad vehicle accident or an injury at work or something severe. Does that account for all the cases, or can it be a more mundane cause sometimes for a spinal cord injury?
Yeah, so it can be any of the things you just mentioned. Okay, so traumatic injury is probably the most recognizable, and that would be motor vehicle collisions. That would be falls from high, heights would be a cause. Sports injuries are another cause of a traumatic injury. You can have things that are a little bit more, what I would say, out there, which would be if you had injury from an infection in the spine. You can have injuries from decreased blood flow to the spinal cord itself. I think of it almost like a stroke that people might think of as being mostly brain affected, but any part of the central nervous system, which includes the spinal cord, can be affected. And then even just the more traditional aging process, what we see a lot is as the body ages, just like any kind of piece of machinery, it can break down over time, and you get things like narrowing of the bony canal around the spinal cord. Most people would recognize that. Spinal stenosis is the word we use for that, and that's narrowing that can, in a lot of instances, compress the spinal cord, cause decreased blood flow to the spinal cord, and you get resultant injury, and in the case of the patients that I treat, pain associated with that. So, kind of just to segue briefly from that, the spinal cord is part of the central nervous system. Okay, that's the brain and the brain stem, and then the spinal cord that goes down. And that spinal cord extends down through a bony canal, which is the spinal column. Okay, and through that canal, it goes all the way almost to the very bottom of the back. It stops really typically about the very top of the lumbar spine, which people think of as the low back, where the small of your back is. Now, I asked that question because I'm curious. Something occurs to me here, and I suspect this is possible. I don't know if you've ever had it yourself, an experience where someone gets referred to you or comes into you, and they're surprised to find out they have a spinal cord injury. They just thought they had a bad back or something like that. Have you ever seen anything like that, or do they pretty much know when they come in? Well, some people don't quite know. The human body is really resilient, and people put up with and tolerate a lot of things. So people come in and they complain of back pain, or they may have some weakness in either the arms or the legs or in the foot, and they're tripping over their foot more than they used to, or they catch the curb when they're stepping up to go into the restaurant. And then we will work them up, do a physical exam, check common things like reflexes, and based on that information, we'll work to determine if they may need some advanced imaging, so an MRI, maybe of the neck or of the low back. And from that, we'll determine if they do have some spinal cord, maybe compression, things like that. A lot of people, when they think about a spinal cord injury, what they think about is really the more devastating injuries, right, that result in paraplegia, things like that, where you have complete loss of function in the extremities, either upper or lower, both. But we see degrees of injury to the cord or compression of the spinal cord that lead to weakness and pain, and that's a very common thing for us to see. And people do come in and in a somewhat unexpected fashion figure out that the back may be a little worse than they thought it was. Well, now, when you talk about this, and you just mentioned paraplegia, and that's kind of what people think of when they think spinal cord injury. That's the first thing that's going to pop in a lot of people's mind is, paralysis. They come in, it's pain, it's all of these things that you're talking about. If that goes untreated, can it lead
to some paralysis if it just is left alone to go about its own business?
Yeah, so you can begin to get symptoms of what we would call motor strength symptoms. So the muscles can become weaker over time if you have compression of either the spinal cord or of the nerves that come off of the spinal cord, what's called the peripheral nervous system, okay? The cord in the brain being the central nervous system. You can start to get some weakness in the muscles. You can get loss of the mass of the muscles, so what's called atrophy of the muscles. And it's not going to be necessarily in an instant, like if somebody's in a motor vehicle collision and they fairly instantaneously have a traumatic injury to the spinal cord. This is something that would be progressive. Now, it may, in some instances, if you have a very narrow spinal canal and it's pressing on the spinal cord, you may have less room for error, so to speak, when it comes to being involved in a motor vehicle collision. A lot of times what will end up happening is they'll have symptoms. We'll evaluate them. We'll address their pain symptoms. And if it's necessary, then we'll refer them to a surgeon. And they can do techniques where they take pressure off of the nerves and pressure off of the spinal cord to reduce the symptoms and then reduce the risk of them progressing to something where they have, complete loss of function, either, in the extremities or the muscles.
Well, to me, the lesson in all of this is spinal cord injury can come from a lot of different directions. I'm going to dig deep on this one and throw it out, but I have some personal history with this with a family member. Could something like pseudotumor cerebri, which is when you generate far too much spinal fluid, and it leads usually to headaches and things like that, could that something like that lead to a spinal cord injury?
I don't know about necessarily a spinal cord injury. The symptoms that you described are going to be the most common thing you're going to experience, right? So you're going to have headaches. Anytime, though, that you have pressure that is affecting the central nervous system, you can get interesting downstream effects. I mean, the way that people describe to me, especially in training, is you think about inside the head, especially inside the skull, that's a fixed space. And so you got room for a few things. You got spinal fluid, you got blood, and you got brain tissue. And when you start adding more of any of those things, you get pressure on parts of the brain and you get downstream effects from the central nervous system. So you can have symptoms that are quite similar without necessarily having an injury directly to the spinal cord itself.
You make this sound complicated, Doc. I'm not going to lie. And I think that's because it is, isn't it? There's nothing simple about this.
Look. It's not simple. It's complicated. And this is where, look, I got to talk about the fact that we have, I have the privilege of working with Methodist Rehabilitation Center, right? And I'm a small subsection of what we do. And this is pain from the acute pain to chronic pain and the downstream effects. But this is a team effort. You have physical therapy and all kinds of rehabilitation and occupational therapy and acute treatment and management of medications and pumps that help with muscle spasticity. This is a huge, complex thing. But Methodist has been around this year. You've probably seen the billboards around for 50 years. And they're the best at what they do. And so we have the privilege of seeing patients who have been cared for by a lot of people in that network. And I get to do my little piece of it. Can
you stick around through the break? We're up against a break right
absolutely.
now. Can you stick around for a few more minutes? Because you mentioned pain management. I want to get into that and talk a little bit more about what you do with the pain management clinics and the techniques that you have and everything else. This is another one of those situations where I could talk to Dr. McGaughey for the next hour and a half. He's about ready to go already, probably, but we're going to make him stick around for one more segment, and we'll do that when we return here on Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Keep it here.
With all your tricks and jokes.
We've done all we can.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Rhino coming through. with the reflex-oriented bumper music for the spinal cord injury segment. That is absolutely perfect. Well done, Rhino. Welcome back to Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here. Dr. Ryan McGaughey here. And we were talking before we went to break about pain management, which is a huge part of this because it's almost a different kind of pain that you deal with when you're suffering from a spinal cord injury, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. You have a couple of different types of pain. So typically, if you do experience something like a motor vehicle collision and you have an injury to the spinal column or to the spinal cord, you're going to have the initial traumatic part of it, right? So think about bony injuries, things like that. But then, part of the problem that you encounter with spinal cord injuries is that you have long-term downstream effect of nerve injury, right? So you can think about the spinal cord as essentially the superhighway of information that runs from the top to the bottom of the central nervous system. And it controls your ability to think about moving your hand, and it happens. And then it also controls or carries information where you touch something hot, your brain receives that information and you react to it. And so you affect both parts of that. When you affect the nerves, you're going to have potentially long-term effects that lead to nerve injury and nerve-associated pain, which can make it challenging. So you have the traumatic part and the nervous system part. And you have to kind of manage both in the acute and chronic setting. So acutely, you may go get treated at a hospital, obviously taken in through an emergency room or trauma situation. And we're talking specifically about an acute injury, and they'll treat you and treat pain and do the things that have to be done acutely. But then long term, you may have some effects that lead to pain and numbness and weakness that can be for years or the rest of your life.
Well, and the initial thought of everyone is, oh, pills, I need some pills. There's a lot of other things you can do to help offset and reduce some of that long-term, in many cases, lifelong pain that they're going to experience with this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way to look at pain management is really in a comprehensive fashion, okay? So things like nerve pain that comes from nerve injury, there may be some appropriate medications that treat nerve pain specifically, right? And you work to balance those. And of course, with any medication, you want to avoid side effects and downstream effects, but that may be necessary. But then, the things that we do in a comprehensive fashion, we'll look at that, and then we'll look at the actual structural problems that you can encounter and the bony injury and resultant arthritic change. When you have an injury like that, you're going to have the entire system thrown off. And so you may have more advanced arthritis that occurs, and you may have muscle spasm and the pain that comes along with that. And so we have different techniques we can use. I'm an interventionalist, so I enjoy doing things that are directed at the site that causes pain, and we try and relieve it in a quick fashion. And not everything is overnight or immediate, but with some work, a lot of the techniques we use can get people a lot of good relief.
Well, I know there are some techniques that I think many people, now I'm not even going to say most, many people will be familiar with, steroid injections, things like that. But there is one. Discuss what you do with radio frequencies. It sounds like I'm semi-qualified to treat spinal cord injuries because we're talking on the radio. What is that about? How does that work?
Well, yeah, you may be qualified with the radio part of it. But so one of the things that we can use is we can target specific nerves, okay? And this would be even in a situation where somebody without a spinal cord injury per se, and they come in and they have, say, chronic nagging, aching neck or low back, cervical or lumbar pain, and they have wear and tear, they've worked hard their whole life, and they end up with pain associated with arthritic change in various spots. We can apply heat, and that's ultimately what radio frequency does, okay? So it runs energy through the body, and it concentrates that energy at a particular point that we want it to create heat. And so we can, as I would say to patients, we'll zap the nerve, but I mean, ultimately you're kind of cauterizing the area. The nerves that are in the peripheral part of the body, they may kind of path and re-sculpt a little bit, and you'll get some return. And so that's something that can be done intermittently. We use some other techniques where we can modulate pain. Okay, so if you think about talking in a telephone and somebody on the other line can hear you, we can intercept that signal in the middle and tweak it a little bit so that the pain that comes from a particular injury in the low back, by the time it reaches the brain, the other telephone, it's tweaked enough that it's more tolerable. And that would be spinal cord stimulation.
That is fantastic. Well, we are out of time. Anything else you wanted to get in before we leave, Dr. McGaughey?
Dave, I appreciate the time. I appreciate people thinking about Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month and what that means to a lot of people who are affected by it or have family members, like you mentioned. And I enjoy the show. Thanks for the time. Anytime.
You're welcome back. Anytime you'd like. You don't have to wait for a special month. Come on back and we'll talk about this stuff anytime you want to. Dr. Ryan McGaughey, enjoyed that very much. We have Fox News. We have SuperTalk Mississippi News. And when we come back, Danielle Morgan is going to join us here on Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Keep it here.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here. Element Wealth can help you with a whole bunch of stuff regarding your business. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 and let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. Joining us now, we have the Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association. She's welcoming as a profession. Danielle Morgan joins us. How are you doing today, Danielle? I don't know if she can hear us. She might not be able to hear me, Rhino, so we may have to work out a plan B here or fiddle with it for a second and see what we can get. If you all of a sudden start hearing me, just yell. Okay, we're gonna go with a plan B here to get Danielle in because I want to talk to her. Tourism is a very important part of Mississippi and the Mississippi economy. People are continually amazed when they find out just how big of an impact tourism has on the economy in Mississippi. There are other states that you kind of know just from the word go that you have tourism contributing an enormous amount to the economy. It's pretty big impact here, and I believe we've got Danielle on the phone now. I don't think even we can mess that one up. Danielle Morgan with the Mississippi Tourism Association, the executive director. Let's try it again. Danielle, you there?
I'm here.
There we go. That's what we're looking for. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. We are busy gearing up for our governor's conference on tourism next week. So we are in the thick of it right now. So lots going on.
Well, it is a lot going on. And what I was talking about there while we were working out our technical difficulty we had is just how important tourism is to the state of Mississippi. It has a big economic impact on the state, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We are on the verge of getting our 2024 numbers. We haven't quite finalized those yet, but those will be dropping soon. But in 2023, visitors spent $11.5 billion in the state, which was an overall impact of $17.5 billion. That spending, to put it in terms we can kind of wrap our brain around, that's about $31 million a day. So.
Good grief. And I, just to make sure everybody caught that, that was an impact of $17 billion with a B, right?
That's right. That's correct.
Holy cow. How you go to sleep with a smile on your face every night, don't you?
Things are really going well. We, obviously recovered very strongly following the pandemic. The state invested some of those federal dollars in making sure that tourism did recover, and so Mississippi fared very well. We know those dollars are starting to wane, so we know there'll be probably a flattening, as we like to say, but right now things are going great, and we're really excited about that, and love to see all the things happening around the state and as the industry grows.
Now, you mentioned the Governor's Conference, which is coming up next week. I think it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right?
That's right.
Tell us about that. What is the Governor's Conference in relation to the Mississippi Tourism Association? What's going on? What's going to happen next week?
Sure. So we're going to be in Vicksburg, Mississippi. The Governor's Conference moves around each year. We love showcasing all areas of the state. So we'll have about 230, between 230 250 professionals from all over the state that come in, and we have programming, lots of networking opportunities, of course. This year we have some great speakers. We have Calvin Stovall, who's going to be speaking on customer service experience. That's something we've been working on with our Heart of Hospitality and Workforce program. So really excited about that. And Phil Ike, who is a specialist on how you tell your stories and how that plays into talent attraction and retention and building strong communities, and many, many others. So we're really excited about that. And then on Friday, we'll have our awards program where Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann will be with us, and we'll be celebrating all the amazing work that tourism professionals around the state are doing. So it'll be it's always great to celebrate your wins each year. So it's inspiring.
Well, and one thing that can be taken from what you just said and running through the various speakers you have and the different things that you're recognizing is that tourism is not just putting out a welcome mat and waiting. There's a lot of work that goes on here, and it's diverse work across a broad spectrum of activities, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's one thing we talk a lot about. It doesn't just happen. There's certainly a lot of work that goes into bringing this into the state. Visit Mississippi is doing an amazing job. Rochelle Hicks is director there, and they're doing really great work. We're all working together. Everyone's rowing the same direction. Sometimes I have people from other states tell me how much they respect how Mississippi does all work together, and we truly believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So we all sell each other and talk about each other, and that's really one of the things that makes Mississippi special.
Well, and from that comment, it kind of illustrates the fact that it's not that way in every state. Every one of the 50 states, not every one of them pulls together and works together. There are little squabbles within the state and competitiveness and everything else. And like you said, we're just all rowing in the same direction in the same boat. And I think that's a competitive advantage for us.
Absolutely, definitely. At the end of the day, we are all the different destinations are competing for those visitors, but we know that as we work together, that's really you're stronger together in every way.
I would just like to put in. I'm going to shill for the home team for a second here, Danielle. So just take it for whatever it's worth. Sure. You move that conference around every year. We down here in Southwest Mississippi, would love to have you.
Well, I'll tell you what, we just did. We bid it 3 years at a time, so we just did a bid. We're going to be on the coast in 2028. We're excited about that. Getting back down there for sure.
Well, I tell you what, no, I'm talking about over here, like, Pike County, Natchez, all in this area over here in this corner down here, where we're just like, we're here too. Just want to throw that out there, but because you're doing such a great job, we want to be involved. Everybody wants to be involved, but that's the beautiful part of it. When you do such a good job and things are rolling so well and working so well, it's not hard to talk people into being a part of it. Everybody wants to jump on board, don't they?
That's right. That's right. And that's what's really exciting about it. I think as Mississippi being known as the hospitality state, we have a very high bar to live up to. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I know I mentioned our workforce program, Heart of Hospitality, but we started actually a free training program. We offer it in English and Spanish. It can be done on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad. To really make sure that we are giving those experiences that visitors are looking for. I think that's something we do really well, but we can always be better. And I'm so excited to say we've had almost 1,000 people get certified in the state since last December. So really proud of that. We're about 14 away from 1,000. So if you're listening out there, workforce.mstourism.com.
Now, you're just 14 away from having 1,000 people certified since last year. So obviously you're full up. You don't need anybody else, right?
Look, just like any industry,
the laugh in response there. That was perfect. The laugh was the best answer possible. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Workforce is a challenge for all industries, and certainly tourism's no exception. We've been talking a lot about that, how there's so many great careers. There's a big misconception that tourism jobs are not quality jobs, and that's just simply not true. There's a lot of really outstanding, whether it's destination work, marketing or accounting or all of those things, research. That's a huge, everything we do now is data driven, to make sure we're maximizing those marketing dollars. And then also, there's a statistic from the Hotel Lodging Association that 50% of hotel GMs started at an entry-level position. And, some of them make six figures and have great careers. And so there's a lot of upward mobility. There's a lot of opportunity, and we want to tell those stories.
The Governor's Conference coming up next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your exhibitors, I'm sure that's full or close to it. For attendees, if anybody else would like to attend, is there still time to register?
Absolutely. We would love to have you. Our media partners are full. We have a great community of media partners that come and meet with our members. But certainly if you'd like to attend, we would absolutely love to have you.
How do they do that? Just very quickly, because we're about out of time here.
mstourism.com. You can go to events, Governor's Conference on Tourism, and all the information's there.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that page right now, so it works out perfectly. Danielle Morgan, enjoyed talking to you, and after the conference, you'll have to come back and give us an after-action report about how it went.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so awesome.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Thursday, otherwise known as what, Rhino?
Friday Eve.
There it is. Notice there was a slight delay. He's still getting back into the rhythm of things. By the way, I was a little worried yesterday when Will was in that seat instead of you. I thought you had gotten raptured. I was like, they found a pile of his clothes on top of Porch Cat, and that's all that was left.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing until after it had happened, too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go there. I could. I'm not going to go there. Just remember, you can easily find someone, a priest, a preacher, whatever, who will explain to you the biblical accuracy of the concept of the rapture. Spoiler alert, you're probably not going to like it if you're interested enough to ask, but by all means, go right ahead. Had some breaking news. Kash Patel said in a press conference this morning that the sniper in Dallas that just started shooting. Didn't know what he was shooting, didn't know who he was shooting, because, obviously he was a hidden genius in America, and wound up killing one detainee, one immigrant who had been detained, and injuring two others. Hurt nobody in terms of an ICE agent or law enforcement official. Left a note that said, handwritten note that said, quote, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof?" AP rounds, armor piercing, is what he was referring to. With this note, with what was written on one of the shell casings, I keep seeing it referred to as it was engraved on the shell casing. Looks like it was written with a blue Sharpie to me, but okay, we'll go with engraving, whatever. With all of these things, with his history, with his family history, do you think there is any chance that we will stop hearing, well, we still don't really know what his motive could have been for this shooting out of the mainstream media? Is that going to end now?
No.
Bingo. Because that's literally the only card they have left to play. We keep the Atlantic. Okay, this is the most opposite of a right-wing publication that you can find. The Atlantic ran an article with a headline saying, and this part is spurious at best, "For the first time in 30 years, left-wing violent attacks are outnumbering right-wing." No, it's just gotten so obvious that no one can deny anymore that it's the people on the left that are going out and doing this stuff over and over and over, just in the past couple of weeks. And there's not a lot of mystery about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what their goal is. He came right out and said, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror. So that's a terrorist activity. That was a terrorist attack by the shooter's own admission. Sooner or later, we're going to have to treat it as what it is and not what the left insists that it should be, which is what we've been dealing with for quite a while. And as I was saying earlier in the show, we've been letting them get away with it, just letting it go. Table flipping time. I'm telling you, it's table flipping time. I don't know if you heard about this one, Rhino, because you have been completely unplugged. He has been locked in an EMF wave-proof cave for several days now. No transmissions were able to reach him in his sequestered location. I'm so jealous, by the way. This is totally jealousy talking. Just want you to know. But have you heard about the drones in Denmark?
Vaguely.
Well, let's put it all in context. You go back to last year, and we had the New Jersey drones, which it turns out were drones all over America, but we wanted to phrase it as New Jersey drones because it sounded like a localized problem and not something that we don't understand at all that's happening everywhere all at once. It was happening in other countries. Now in Denmark, around the Copenhagen airport, they had to shut it down because several drones were coming in. They didn't know where they were from, what they were doing, couldn't do anything about them, and just had to wait for them to wander off. They're being described by authorities as basically blue blinking orbs. I don't recall seeing a drone that's a light up beach ball. Did I miss a meeting there? Is there some technological advancement I'm not aware of that lead us to that? And of course, they're blaming Russia. Now, that's probably a decent assumption. But here's my question. Do you think the odds are going up or down that there's something at play here that we don't know about in terms of we keep blaming Russia or we blame this country or this faction or that faction? Is there something else going on here?
It's a distinct possibility, but it keeps continuing to strengthen my belief that you really only have three roads we're going down. Either it's ours, and the left hand isn't talking to the right hand, so they don't know what we have and what we don't have, which is, in my opinion, the most likely. you've got, in my opinion, the least likely that it's not ours, but it's one of our adversaries, and we've let them get way ahead of us on something that we should be in the lead with. And that could be China's probably the best bet. Russia's even less likely. North Korea's even less likely than Russia. And then you got the third thing that you just can't rule out at this point, is that it's something neither side fully understands and is racing to comprehend. And what label you want to put on that really comes down to what your flavor of choice is, whether it be little green aliens, Martians, angels, demons, extra-dimensional beings, whatever it is, we're racing China to figure out what they are. That's the third road you go down.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is you can't definitively just hand wave away any of those options. We literally don't know anything about this, and we haven't since they started appearing in America last year, at the end of the year. You remember the big drone wave. We had a couple of sightings in Mississippi here during that big kerfluffle. Now they are calling this, I love this, in Denmark they are calling it a hybrid attack by Russia to create fear. Number one, a hybrid attack? That would mean multiple different ways of attacking. We've seen a couple of drones fly and hover up next to an airport. Aside from that, I haven't heard of anything in Denmark going on. So I'm not sure where the hybrid term is coming from, unless there's something we're not being told, again.
Because there is a uptick in the use of underwater drones as well.
True. And growing evidence that there are some that can do both, underwater and above water. And at that point, we're off into a whole different technological world, something that can just go back and forth. But once again, in this situation, they had the drones reported, not just in Copenhagen at the airport, a couple of other cities that I'm not going to try to pronounce because I will butcher them horrifically in Denmark, had some sightings near Air Force bases, their version of the Air Force, Danish F-16 fighters stationed there. They have been scrambling things to try to deal with them. The Danish government says they're planning to, and I love this phrase, acquire new capabilities for detection and present a bill that will provide increased opportunities for infrastructure owners to shoot down drones. That's the most puzzling thing to me. Do you remember when we had the balloons that were coming in from the northwest and just drifting into the country, and we were shooting those down? Shot any drones down yet? Any of them? I don't think I missed a report. Is it because we don't want to, or is it because we can't? These are the questions that have to be answered at some point here, you would think. Having said that, I don't know. 60, 70 years later, you can still start a mighty fine argument by just asking, who killed Kennedy? So I'm not sure we'll ever get a full answer to this. It's not the way it works historically. We continue on this Thursday morning in the Element Wealth Studios on Middays. Right after this, it gets weirder from here. Keep it here.
From the Secret.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What's up?
Middays in the Element Wealth Studios here on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Dave Hughes here this afternoon. Sports Talk Mississippi is going tractor shopping. They're going to be at Scruggs Farm, Lawn and Garden in Saltillo. Got a big end-of-season sale. Get 0% financing for 72 months on John Deere compact tractors. I want to see Hey Dad on a tractor, by the way. I just want to see that. 2.5% for 48 months on Gators, 0% for 24 months on commercial mowers. Going on at Scruggs Farm, Lawn and Garden in Saltillo, Sports Talk, Mississippi there all afternoon long. Let's get back into it. I teased this briefly at the beginning of the show. One of the things that we have seen about this dweeb who opened fire on the ICE facility in Dallas yesterday morning. Same thing we saw about Charlie Kirk's killer and other killers. The narrative is very much, they're pushing it with all of them, was an avid gamer. Played video games are the devil themselves. And I mentioned back at the beginning of the show, and Rhino, you nailed it when I said it was a connection to the 80s, and you brought up the Satanic Panic and the evils of heavy metal music that were causing, all these horrible problems. Tipper Gore came out. By the way, if you agree that heavy metal music is awful, you agree that a Democrat was right about something. Congratulations, good job, keep it up. Because that's who pushed that. Was talking to my wife about this. And I remember that period very well. And the stickers that she had Congress put into place and the record industry that have become almost invisible now because they're everywhere. Parental advisory, explicit lyrics, whatever, the black and white sticker. That became the way that the teenagers at the time, I was one, selected which records they were going to buy. Oh, I want one with that sticker on it. So it kind of had the reverse effect, but that was never the problem.
It was also exceedingly silly because they gave a parental advisory warning to Frank Zappa's Jazz from Hell album, which was a completely instrumental album.
Yes, but it had the word hell in the title. And we all know where that leads. To hell. That was the level of logic that was going into that. Now, currently, it's video games. If you're going to blame the video game, somebody plays video games and they go out and they shoot people. Well, that's only about a step away from blaming the gun, isn't it?
It also hasn't held up to scientific rigor.
No, they've done studies. They've done all sorts of things. It's not the case.
The closest thing they found to it was that prolonged exposure to aggressive or violent gaming can produce more aggressive attitudes in young children for a period of time that lasts approximately 10 minutes.
Yes. So if you hit that sweet spot of 10 minutes, it's a big problem. Otherwise, but here's my question. And I realize they try to focus specifically on violent games, first-person shooter games. They listed some of the ones that this Yahoo had been playing. Left 4 Dead 2. I've played that. I've never shot anybody. Never tried to. Never wanted to. You need to look at how it's got to be a proportional ratio here. Out of everybody that's ever played those games, how many have actually went and shot somebody? It always comes back to, it's not what how many of them drank sodas? Oh my goodness, that leads you to kill people. That's how ridiculous the argument is. When you have millions of people playing a game and you got a dozen of them that go out and shoot people, it wasn't the game's fault.
Especially when you've got reputable surveying people in the industry, like Pew Research did a survey, I want to say it was last year. And for teenage boys, 13 to 17, teenage boys, 96 or 97%, it was some ridiculously high percentage, say they play games on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah, that's ridiculously common. But you got to realize, I came up with video games. We grew up together. I had the original Atari 2600 when it came out. I had then television. I had all of those gaming consoles that came out. Spent a lot of time in arcades. Matter of fact, one of the first games that I ever played was a text-only adventure on the mainframe here called Hunt the Wumpus. I have yet, by the way, had that translate into real-world behavior of trying to go get the Wumpus. The point is this. If we keep looking for, the boogeyman, what's caused this? We need a simple one-sentence answer to what is causing these problems. Well, it's never that simple, but if you want to boil it down to the most impactful reason, horrible parents. If you stink as a parent, guess what's going to happen with your kids that you're raising? This guy's mother, they've went back and checked all of this, horrifically left-wing. Celebrating violence, using all of the violent terms. So if that is your mother and you've been getting that your entire life, what's your attitude going to be? I don't care if you've never touched a video game or not, but we continuously try to look for something simple and easy that fits on a poster board to blame for these things. And there is a very specific reason why. We've talked about this before in other realms. It's the same mechanism that was put into place with heavy metal music back in the 80s. If you have something that you can identify, and that's the bad guy, that's the villain of the story, well, that allows you to get everyone stirred up. Because if it's just this amorphous, well, we have a problem and you might be doing the same thing, shame on you, it doesn't spread quite like, we got to get the bad guy, and the bad guy is, fill in the blank with whatever new boogeyman they've come up with this time around. Because then it feeds on itself. It grows. Because if there's one thing that frightened, mad, sometimes hysterical people are good at, it's spreading it like a virus. And then it just kind of takes on a life of its own. You lit the match, but boy, look at that explosion. That's beautiful. That's the attitude of the people that come up with these things. So I have noticed that at work again, this time around. Last time we had shootings and things in a big wave, it was the guns. That didn't work. That never caught. Not to the level they wanted it to. So now we're pushing that it was an avid gamer. It was another avid gamer. It's the gamers. Gamers are the problem. In our infinitely ongoing drive to find something we can blame, especially other than ourselves. If you raise good kids, they don't do bad things. It's that simple. It's that easy. If you fill their little skulls full of nonsense and ridiculous takes and hysterical outlooks on life, how do you think they're going to react? How do you think they're going to develop? I don't care if they're playing games or not. I know people that have never played anything other than Candy Crush that I wouldn't trust to keep my puppy for an hour. But it's already being slanted that way. I don't know if you've seen that in the news coverage, Rhino, but the last two, we've had 4 or 5 over the last couple of weeks. Every one of them is an avid gamer. It's a gamer. It's a gamer. Don't fall for the same trick that Tipper Gore got you with in the 80s, is what I'm saying. It's the same playbook. It's the same mechanism that they're trying to use to stir up panic and fear and anger and direct it. Because as I always say, the primary function of you being scared, of you being mad, is you being controlled. because it's much easier to control someone when they're scared or when they're mad than it is when they have a cool, rational, logical head. And the best way to do that? Find a boogeyman. The boogeyman du jour this time around, it wasn't the guns. Notice suddenly when it's all left-wing people with left-wing ideology that are shooting people, it's no longer the guns' fault. Now it's going to be the video games. Yes, they did use the gun. We admit that. They pulled the trigger. They wrote on their show casings, but it wasn't their fault. It wasn't. They played Kirby too many times, and then they got unbalanced. To be fair, that might be a legitimate reaction to playing too much Kirby. We continue on this Thursday morning on Middays.
Poly up.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert
All right, we are back.
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Sing it, Don. That's part of our problem. That song is about part of our problem societally in America, to me. We took "if it bleeds, it leads," the old newspaper aphorism, and turned it into a way of life. And it's going great. Glad we did that. It's working out fantastic. Keep up the good work. I don't know if you saw this. Right now, this news has come out. Pete Hegseth apparently has all of the military leaders around the planet, the American military leaders stationed all over the planet, coming into a Marine Corps base in Virginia for a big all-hands meeting next Tuesday, and hasn't said what it's about. It's not ominous at all.
Well, my first guess is hopefully the least likely, but there has been some conversation online about the threat of foreign terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, because the border was pretty porous under the Biden administration, and well, there were some bad actors that made it into the U.S. with the evacuation of Afghanistan. So you can only imagine if some got in through that on a plane to America flown by the federal government, then there is a possibility some crossed the border when the federal government wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, and I think you were being kind when you said the border was porous. The border was non-existent, especially during the second half of Biden's administration. The whole thing, yeah, but the last couple of years, it might as well have not even referred to the border. It was just come as you are all day. They're saying it's about 800 generals and admirals coming in from the U.S. and dozens of other countries and time zones. The statement issued by a Pentagon spokesman, Sean Parnell, today said that Hegseth will be addressing his senior military leaders early next week. Gave no details about it. I'm going to throw out something else. Next Tuesday is when this meeting is. Tuesday night at midnight is when funding runs out for the federal government. And as you have heard today, President Trump has said, we're going to fire a bunch of people. Are they about to let some military leaders go? Or some troop reductions or something? I wouldn't think that would be possible, but the timing is kind of unusual, I think. I don't know that it would be related to that, but boy, is it a big coincidence otherwise. because it's really starting to look like they're not going to get anything passed, and we're going to see a federal government shutdown. Your opinion, Rhino, is that a bad thing?
No.
Yeah, it was kind of my thought. Here's why I say that. Yes, it is horrible. It will affect a lot of people in terms of being able to afford things and live and pay their bills. But at the same time, that was the entire purpose of Doge when the Trump administration started and Elon Musk came in to help. Find all the people that are just riding the bench and cashing their paychecks and not having an impact on how the government is run. A shutdown might be exactly what you need, because you just start getting rid of people. Especially once you realize, oh, they're gone and we haven't noticed. Things are still going great. Well, we're paying them for nothing. Is that going to solve the debt crisis and the budget crisis? Nah, it's a drop in the bucket, those salaries. But if you put enough drops in the bucket, it starts to fill up. That's the thing everybody misses, because, again, everyone has been programmed, has been geared towards there has to be a quick, immediate, right now, one-switch fix for any problem. Doesn't work that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But part of President Trump's statement about that was he was instructing all of his leaders in his administration to put together their plan for letting people go. So Pete Hegseth has 800 generals and admirals coming in to Virginia next week to have a powwow about an unspecified subject. I can't possibly see where, no matter what it is, it's good to call everybody back into HQ, basically, and have a meeting with the boss. We'll see. We'll see. It's time for news. We've got Fox News. We've got SuperTalk Mississippi News. And we've got hour number 3 of Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. All on the way next. Keep it here.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply. And look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Middays, live in the Element Wealth Studios. Welcome to the third hour of the show. Tomorrow night, by the way, the Lyric's going to be rocking again. The 5-Star Funk Lounge is going to be performing for Football Friday nights in Oxford. And this is a big weekend. It's LSU. Come on. The claws come out for this one, right? I think they have to. It's presented by Ratchet Entertainment, sponsored by some people called Super Talk Mississippi. I hear they're good folk. And the Grove Collective, as tomorrow night, general admission VIP tickets still available to see 5-Star Funk Lounge for Football Friday nights in Oxford on LSU weekend. It's going to be hopping. Oxford is going to be loud this weekend, I think. That's not exactly a Miss Cleo level prediction there. You know, that is kind of a given. But just want to make sure you know you still got a chance to get up there and be a part of that. Talked about the mass federal firings that are potentially going to happen as soon as next week, because that's the thing. Stuff moves quickly. I saw there's one thing that I'm getting a little concerned about right now, though, when it comes to President Trump and the Trump administration. Saw a breaking thing just a little while ago that President Trump says he's going to have a major announcement today. That's what, about the 8th day in a row we've had a major announcement? At what point do you start running the risk of, if every day is special, none of them are special? If every announcement is major, how long before that's just normal? And then you get, for lack of a better term, feature creep in terms of your promotion. Everything can't be a major explosive announcement. Now, he usually has some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but there have to be levels to it, because you will get the hype exhaustion in people, and they will quit getting excited about it and quit paying attention. Just my thought on that. Have no idea what it's going to be about. It could be about the federal government thing. I've seen people speculating he's going to finally go ahead and pull the trigger and reschedule marijuana. I don't know where they're getting that from. Although I got to admit, a couple of days after he had the Tylenol discussion, why not? Why not? That's my only concern. It's not that he's making bad announcements. I just hope we don't fall into the trap of overhyping them to the point to where none of them seem special anymore because it's every day. The fatigue can be real. That's my only concern there. The announcements themselves, yes, generally good stuff. But President Trump has a style that lends itself to hyperbole. And I get that. That's a big part of why he's successful. Everything is the greatest ever. Everything, was the meme for the longest time that this is going to be huge. That's just the way he deals with stuff. Not saying that's the wrong way to deal with it. I just wonder if we could start seeing some fatigue about the major announcement every day out of the White House. Sooner or later, we have to take a knee for a couple of days and let people catch their breath, don't we, Rhino?
One would think.
Yeah.
But his strategy of flooding the zone has been effective in at least muting some of the response from the left and the mainstream media you saw in his first term. By the time they figured out a talking point and gathered up the wagons to circle him, he's already on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit. They don't have time to react and formulate a game plan. They're having to shoot from the hip to respond, and it's not nearly as effective this time around. I'm just from the cheap seats over here. Freely admit that. I think you could just say you've got an announcement coming from the White House, or President Trump will address the country without using the adjectives, the major, massive, all of that kind of thing. It goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show. If you want to have a peaceful time on X, mute the phrases, this is big and this is huge. And a lot of the nonsense doesn't show up anymore. And I just wonder if that effect is going to kick in if we keep hyping that every announcement is a major, huge, big deal announcement. Now, I say that, he may announce, free Little Debbies for everybody today, in which case I take all of this back. But I do worry about that just a little bit, because I don't want him to lose his effectiveness with these announcements and these moves. You kind of got to, the old show business advice, always leave them wanting more. Just feels like every day we give away the farm. But it is effective in dealing with the media. Social media, not so much. I don't know if you've seen that we have, over the last couple of weeks, a lot of politicians, especially on the right, mostly on the right, decrying and attacking social media. Governor Cox out in Utah right after the Charlie Kirk assassination had some very bad things to say about social media. And it's true that it has not helped. You and I have talked about this several times, Rhino, that the problem with social media is not what the content on there. That's coming from dingbats, mostly. I'm sorry, I don't know what your feed looks like. Mine, it's mostly dingbats. The problem is it has allowed the crazies the opportunity to find one another easily. And there's strength in numbers, especially when you have a ridiculous outlook on something. If you've got backup, if you're not the Lone Ranger out there, and all of a sudden you're surrounded in some ridiculous private Facebook group with 3,000 people who agree with every single ridiculous thing you say, well, that leads down a bad path. That, to me, is the problem that social media has created. Because the rest of it, I'm sorry, is just like the concept of cyberbullying. I have never completely understood the concept of cyberbullying. If somebody is hurting your little feelings on the computer or on your phone, turn it off. And they immediately stop doing it. It is a self-solvable problem, but we have tried to turn it into a big deal. I'm not sure I agree with that take. This is another instance of, to me, kind of trying to place the blame in the wrong direction sometimes, but there's a little more validity to this because, again, the people that used to have to put up a flyer on the telephone pole with the little tear-off sheets at the bottom with a phone number, call me if you also believe that the Nazis are taking over America. And you had to wait for somebody that agreed with that to come by, rip off a strip, go home, make a phone call, arrange a meeting, get together, find some warehouse somewhere, and gather together all 5 of you that found it. That's a different process than going on Facebook and immediately having a bunch of people cozy up and go, hey, I like your flavor, crazy. That's nice. Let's talk let's make a group. And 5 seconds later, you get a whole bunch of people in there with you. Greasing that particular social shoot has led to a lot of problems we would not have had if it didn't exist. That's where the problem with social media comes in, unless I'm reading it wrong, Rhino, unless I have the wrong outlook on this.
No, I think you're dead on because you used a poster on a poll, but my example is usually, if you're the guy that married his toaster, you're madly in love with your toaster. It's really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things where you'd have to put up a poster about how you love your toaster on the corkboard at the local library and hope somebody within 50 miles also had an affinity for their toaster so that y'all could talk about how much you love your toasters. Nowadays, you just log in and there's 14 Facebook groups of I'm in love with my toaster, and you can all talk about how much you love your toaster, and it's been the death of shame.
The toaster love group probably has their own flag by now, don't they?
More than likely.
And might I add, they are very exclusionary towards the toaster oven people. That's a completely different thing. Stay out of our conversation.
They get up in arms over that.
Yes, that's fighting words. That's the level of stupidity we're at on every single topic in America right now. We love our toasters so much.
It's a blessing and a curse. You have the blessing of the mainstream media can no longer have complete control over the narrative, but the curse is you have to share the internet with toaster lovers.
The majority of human beings, I'm not narrowing this down to America, I'm not narrowing it down to one side because it's on both political sides, it's on all political sides. The majority of people are not mentally and emotionally equipped to have this level of connection. And we're seeing the results play out in real time. And if that hurts your feelings, I'm probably talking about you. Gonna need security to walk me to the car today. We continue on this Thursday morning on Middays in the Element Wealth Studios.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi. Welcome back. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
the Element Wealth studio. They'll probably have to hose it out after we get done with this show. It's been that kind of day. Dave Hughes here on Middays. Have you seen what's going on with the Apple TV show, The Savant?
A little bit, mostly the memes.
The memes have been excellent. It's Jessica Chastain as a brunette with enormous glasses for some reason. Let me explain the premise of this. This show, which has been, in production in the works for a while now, is about a suburban mom who works at home. She is a savant. She infiltrates hate groups online and works to prevent horrible tragedies from happening. You can kind of smell where that was going, right? You know what that was going to be about. She was going to have her little leftist beliefs, and she was going to be infiltrating outrageous fringe right-wing organizations online and preventing them from doing the evil that they do everywhere all the time. And I think somebody at Apple finally woke up over the last week or so and said, it looked around, checked the news, and said, oh, wait, maybe now's not the right time for this show. And they pulled the plug on it. It was supposed to debut tomorrow. I think it was Tuesday. They announced that it was being pulled indefinitely. They're just not going to... It's done. It's finished. Like I said, it was supposed to launch tomorrow on Apple TV, and now it's not. So it was completely in the can. They've spent all the money. They've done all the work. I would bet there was no way for them to reshoot enough of it to make it palatable to America as it stands today. And they had no choice. They just pulled the ripcord, jumped out of the plane, left it behind. What do you want to bet, Rhino? This thing was conceived, and pre-production work and writing and everything started on this last year before the election. And they all thought that the Democrats were going to win re-election back into the White House.
That's a pretty safe bet.
I think that was the mindset with this. I am just frankly amazed, and I want to make sure that you pick up on the fact that this is a major deal in a way you might not be realizing at first. Because prior to this, they wouldn't have cared. Now would have been the time, oh no, we're going to release this. We're going to show what's going on. We're going to fight for our cause and so forth and so on. But we have now reached a point, we have now changed the conversation in America culturally to where they just basically flushed a bunch of money down the toilet that's already spent and decided not to show this at all because it wouldn't be a good idea. That is a major change in attitude and approach from a sliver of Hollywood. This is a good sign. It's a good thing, not because they're not going to air what was at best, I think, going to be a very mid-level show. But it's the change in attitude. It's the change in the cultural atmosphere being picked up on by somebody in Hollywood. And even they said, no, no, we don't need to do this. This isn't the right move right now, and just pulled the plug on it. I count that as a win, Rhino, in that category.
It's a win culturally and societally. I mean, it's kind of like it's a different circumstances, but it's kind of like, was it Warner Brothers that shelved the Looney Tunes movie, that they had finished everything, like it was done and dusted and ready to go, and they shelved it for a tax write-off. I don't think Apple's doing this for a tax write-off. But the people involved in producing the show, or in the case of Warner Brothers, the movie, don't get to see that hard work come to fruition, which is a risk in that industry, but it does suck for them. No matter how skewed their viewpoints may be, they likely worked hard on it, and now they're not going to get to see it.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but at the same time, It's going to suck for somebody, and I would rather it suck for somebody else than me. Does that sound selfish? I hope so, because it is. It's been sucking for me for over a decade. I'm about ready for a breath of fresh air, a little ray of sunshine coming in through the filthy windows that we've allowed to accumulate dirt and grime for the last decade. So I count it as a win. That's how desperate we are for a win that we count this as a win, but that is the case. Talking about that, though, and I'm waiting for the calls of censorship. You know that's the stalking horse this is going to be used as. The next step in Kimmel, they will try to create some sort of outrage that obviously this is being censored and this is wrong. I want to give you a story you may not be aware of. You if you've been listening for a while, you know that I am a big fan of entertainment from the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s. Big fan of all of that kind of stuff. Well, you may or may not remember the Smothers Brothers, Tom and Dick Smothers comedy team. They got their own show on CBS. The Smothers Brothers. This was back in the 60s. And it was a hit. It was like number one. It was a major hit. The problem was they were not fans of the Vietnam War. And the president at the time, Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson, used every bit of pressure he could, made every kind of phone call he could. He got them canceled. He got the number one show canceled and pulled off the air because they kept having musical guests on singing Vietnam War protest songs. They kept doing skits about how bad the war was and how bad people were being treated. And the sitting Democratic president at the time applied pressure and had them canceled. But that was okay, right? Because it was a Democrat? That's the danger when you have people running around calling actions unprecedented. There are a lot less unprecedented things that happen than most people want you to believe. I mean, that's a direct action from a president, and you can come even closer when President Barack Obama made a phone call to Bob Iger and got Roseanne fired from her show and her character killed off, the number one show at the time, because she made a joke he didn't like on Twitter. But that was okay. That was a different story. But this whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, oh my goodness, that was horrible. And now it's going to be the savant. That's going to be the next step in this. Just watch. They're going to try. I don't think it's going to catch. I don't think it's going to have any legs, but that's the direction they're going to go in with this story. You know, President Trump has been saying since his first term, that was one of his slogans, one of his expressions in the first term was that we would get tired of winning. You remember that, Rhino?
Oh, yeah.
Winning takes a lot of different forms. And watching the left flopping around like a catfish on a riverbank, desperately trying to figure out how to get back in the water so they can at least breathe, that's winning to me. That it feels like winning. So don't miss all of the winning, because there's some going on. You may not have really picked up on just how much winning is happening there in the cultural change, in the shift. I think it's next week. They rescheduled it and moved it, isn't it? I think it's next week that the Turning Point USA organization is going to be at Ole Miss. Originally, Charlie Kirk was supposed to be there next month in October, and they moved it up, and I think it's next week. I don't remember the exact date.
Yeah, it was originally scheduled for October 29th. It's been moved up to September 30th.
Yeah, so next Tuesday is when that's happening. That one incident changed a lot of stuff. A lot of things politically, culturally, societally. And it all, to me, falls under the heading of wins, one after another. Kind of righting the ship a little bit. And hopefully that ship will continue to right itself as we move forward. We just have to work to make it happen. We continue here on Middays in the Element Wealth Studios right after this on a Thursday morning. Keep it here.
From theseabrook.com.
Get on!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to the Element Wealth Studios. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006. And Element Wealth can help you find some balance between your income growth and guarantees here in the Element Wealth Studios as we continue on our way on this nice Thursday morning. I think the rain's behind us now, isn't it, Rhino? Pretty much statewide.
Yeah, for the most part. There may be a pop-up shower here and there, but it won't be much, and it won't be statewide.
Yeah, just a little spot here and there. That's about it. So take an umbrella or don't as you feel like it. Chances are really good you're not going to need it. It's going to be a pretty beautiful weekend with some slightly better temperatures in spots, too. So we'll take that. Definitely. The latest economic data released today. I'm going to read the NBC News headline on this. I've seen it on multiple sites, but this is an interesting wording for a headline. The U.S. economy grew more than thought in the second quarter as glum shoppers kept on buying. That's an unusual take. Well, they're sad, but they're still spending money, so it's okay. And the GDP went up. What does that do to the chances of another rate cut? Does it matter? Mortgage rates were announced today. They went up again. So we're just in a mess. And I think part of it is that people keep spending money on ridiculous things. I don't know if you saw the...
Like Kamala's audiobook?
Oh, good grief. Don't get me started. I saw somebody, some radio show somewhere, they took portions of her book and slowed it down 30%, the audio book, and she sounds drunk as a skunk. It is absolute genius. She sounds exactly like she has been hitting happy hour before she read it, because that's all it takes. Just got to slow her down a little bit, and bam, it's there. No, did you see the latest statement from Ticketmaster?
No.
This came out today because they've got the whole action against them for ticket prices and the way it works and everything. The CEO of Live Nation, Michael Rapino, says. Said concert tickets have been underpriced for a long time and they should really cost a lot more than they do as it is. The problem is when you have tickets, and to be perfectly honest, there's somewhat of a logical basis for that, because if you're pricing the tickets at $200, which is either really expensive or really cheap, depending on, what kind of concert you're going to. Well, let's say you're pricing it at $200 and they immediately sell out, and then they immediately sell out again on the secondary market for $700 a ticket. Well, it's kind of hard not to reach that conclusion, to be honest, because if people are buying it from you at this price and reselling it at a huge markup and they're selling it just fine, probably you could sell it at that markup just fine. But the problem is people keep finding a way to find the money to buy these things. So nothing improves because, well, like with the GDP numbers today, revising the second quarter up to a 3.8% growth. They were originally saying it was 3.3. If people keep spending every dime they get on, let's be honest, things they don't need, none of this breaks, none of this changes, because there's no incentive to. If you're selling well, why would you change anything? That's part of the complicated nature of this whole problem. My question, though, Rhino, maybe you can help me figure this out. We keep getting the employment numbers. We keep finding out that, depending on who you ask, either everybody has a job or nobody has a job. Doesn't seem to be a middle ground estimate on that anywhere. If we have people out of work, where are they getting the money they're spending? The helicopter money doesn't exist anymore. That was 4 years ago. So where are they getting the money to support themselves, to go to concerts, to buy all these fancy things? Where is the money coming from if they're not working for it? I don't think we've talked enough about that, honestly, because that's a big part of it. If all of a sudden you run out of the money to spend all over the country and light up Amazon like crazy instead of going to your local retailer and just have the truck burning a hole in the road to your house every day with new deliveries and going to big fancy expensive concerts because you really wanted to go, and on the secondary market you paid $800 to $1,000 per ticket. Where is that money coming from, Rhino?
I'm of two minds. Either there's a much larger cash economy than the economists are willing to admit that they don't take into account, or people are better off than the presiding sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, it almost has to be one of those two, or possibly a combination of both. But I'm sorry, when grocery prices continue to go up, you know why they continue to go up? Because people are paying it. Now, admittedly, you got to have food. But some of the stuff that is bought is not exactly got to have it or you're going to die level stuff. Same thing with a lot of other purchases that are made. People are finding the money to spend it. Now, they're griping about how they don't have any money and things are horrible on the way to buy their $800 concert ticket and book their hotel room because it's out of town and pay for the gas to get there and back. Oh, that's fine, but the rest of it, there's a problem. I just feel like there's something missing in the narrative here, and I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but it doesn't add up. GDP keeps increasing. People keep spending more and more money. Where's it coming from, number one? And number two, why does anyone think that prices are going to come down as long as you're still selling everything you got? I think part of it is related back to the internet. If people were shopping locally instead of on Amazon, number one, it would keep the money in their community. Number two, they would shop differently. And they would spend their money in more meaningful ways. But instead, we just spray money around like it's going out of style, which I have to wonder some days if it is. Feels like that. Perfect example. I don't know if you saw this announcement from the IRS. They are phasing out paper refund checks. You will no longer be able to select the option for them to mail you a check if you're getting a refund. It's direct deposit or nothing. We've made it really easy to spend money.
We've made it even easier to go into debt.
Yes.
The buy now, pay later has become an epidemic.
Yes. And I think that's part of it. Definitely.
If you're using buy now, pay later on your Chick-fil-A order, that's not sound financial decision making.
It's a fantastic meme I saw after Costco announced they were partnering with, I think it was Klarna. And somebody said, my parents, when I was a child, he's going to grow up and be so much wealthier than I am and have a better house and a better job and have a much better life. And I'm so excited for him. Me, I have hot dog debt. Yeah, that's not the way we should be going, I think. And there are some of them, what's interesting, even if they're not partnered, I know one of them, I think it's Afterpay. If you decide you want something and they don't accept Afterpay, you go into Afterpay and they will give you a temporary fake debit card number that you go use to buy it like you're using a debit card, and then it just gets charged to Afterpay and you make your payments through them. That's what Rhino's talking about. It's become very easy to buy things you can't afford. That's a bubble that sooner or later is going to have to pop. There's no way out of that as that continues to rise. So you may have put your finger on part of it right there, Rhino. A lot of people are buying things they can't afford and pushing off the pain till later. This is not sustainable, what we're doing in the economy. Credit card debt is through the roof. Debt in general is through the roof. Hot dog debt is through the roof. It's even worse if you're getting toppings. I mean, it's... Why do we live on a planet where we have to have this discussion? I'm discussing hot dog debt, and I'm not even doing it ironically. Final segment of Middays in the Element Well studios. You're welcome. Coming up next. Keep it here.
Patriotism is a law.
Is with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
I still love that song. I always will. Welcome back. Middays in the Element Wealth studios. Don't forget Sports Talk on location this afternoon at Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden in Saltillo. End of season sale going on. 0% financing for 72 months on John Deere compact tractors, 2.5% for 48 months on Gators, and 0% for 24 months on commercial mowers. You can find out more on Sports Talk this afternoon from Saltillo, live at Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden. Going to be a good time. And again, I want to see Hey Dad on a tractor. I'm not asking for much out of life, I don't think. We have solved part of the economic problems, Rhino, or apparently we are in the process of solving them, by the way.
Really?
Yes. Starbucks announced today that they're closing a large number of their stores and laying off close to 2,000 workers because business is way down. So we have solved the spending your money on expensive, fancy coffee problem. Or at least we're making progress on it. Now, if we could just tackle that avocado toast thing, everybody could afford a house, right? That's what we've heard for how long now?
About a decade, it seems.
Skip that expensive Starbucks coffee and cut back on that avocado toast, and you could buy a house too. Well, Starbucks is hurting because nobody's buying their expensive coffee anymore.
And that also fails to take into account the fact that my rent for a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment is only a couple hundred shy of what a two-bed, two-bath house would cost me, but I don't qualify for the payments on that two-bed, two-bath house.
Yes. Yes. That is a big part of the entire problem. And that's not going to get fixed anytime soon. Give it about maybe 10 years, maybe. And we'll start to see some changes in things because certain attitudes have to eventually leave the arena. Because I'm sorry, if you go to buy a home, you've been renting, using your example here, if you've been renting for $1,500 a month, let's say, and you go to apply to buy a home with a note that's going to be about $1,500 a month, about the same, the bank will say that you're not financially capable of paying $1,500 a month. You show them, I've been paying that every month without missing a single month in rent for the last 6 years, and they go, well, yeah, but that doesn't count. That makes no sense.
Zero.
No sense at all. I have just proven to you I can pay $1,500 a month with no problem. Been doing it for years, never missed a payment. But you think I won't make that same payment to you to own a house? Are you stupid, or are you just rigging the game? That's the question that immediately comes to mind there. That has never made sense to me. It will never make sense to me. But it's going to take some definite changes in things before that gets addressed, I'm afraid. Until then, we're stuck with, sorry, I'm going to call it as I see it, stupidity. That's all it is. I want to leave you with something. There is a woman out in California, San Francisco, put up a billboard with her picture, and it just says marylisa.com. Sure enough, that website exists. I went to that website. She's trying to find her a spouse. She has fast facts, who Lisa is looking for. So, of course, I immediately clicked on who Lisa is looking for. She has different categories. Must be on board with a monogamous relationship and dating with the intent for marriage. Wanting to start a family within the next 2 or 3 years. Okay, that's very reasonable. Got no problem with that. Education, must be college educated, bachelor's degree at a minimum. Current healthy lifestyle is a must. No marijuana, tobacco, psychedelics, or recreational drinking. Good hygiene. Okay, I'm with you on the good hygiene, too. You don't want Captain Stinky to come pick you up. I get that. Politics, must be Democratic or liberal or left-leaning politically. Okay, so you just eliminated half of the country. Good job. Looking for someone who's not particularly religious. That doesn't change the number of potentials much because it's kind of the same group. No criminal record and a nonviolent personality. Very giving of her. She does say she has no height requirement. I assume trust fund is acceptable. The whole thing is hilarious. If you want to go to marylisa.com, it's really fascinating to look at this desperate cry for help. Rhino, enjoyed it as always. Welcome back. Sorry you missed the rapture, or congratulations. I don't know, whichever one applies. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6:06 with Lance for mornings here on SuperTalk, my friend. I'll see you then.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.